All right, I just want to take a little break from the bridge work and look at the piers here. So I'm going to be modifying these. What you have in front of you are um, where I've added the AK concrete material and did a bit of weathering, and I actually added some graffiti to this as well. Let's see, like on that one here. And that was okay. I like the look for that time. But now with this transition, I've decided that I want to change up a little bit. It's kind of been on my mind for a while. So we're going to make a little modification. So the two piers on the left, they've actually been modified. Those piers were giving me problems. The train was running into them, and you had to get them just right to not have any accidents. And I just want a little bit more clearance. So I actually, with the help of my friend Bruce, we went ahead and took about 1/8 of an inch off of those. And so that's going to compensate not only for the train rubbing up against it, but also I'm going to be adding this material here, which is also very thin. It's probably about 1/8 of an inch thick, and it's got an adhesive backing on it. This product is from Chooch, and I'm going to wrap the piers with these. And so it was necessary not only for clearance issues, but also to make room for this to go ahead and thin those down a bit. Probably a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch now that I come to think of it, because we had to come really thin considering I was adding this material. Now the two on the right, they're actually not touched at all because they're nowhere near the tracks. I actually like the thickness of it, and I like the idea of having the space around it. So those will remain the same. So I'm going to go ahead and get this process started. I don't know what challenges I will face. I have some ideas, but once I get the first one done, I will come back and provide you with an update. The pier work has been completed. So let me give you the rundown. First thing I did was sprayed everything with a dark gray primer that not only acts as a tooth for what comes on top, but it also helps to create some depth once I start adding the additional colors. Then after that, I dry brushed a khaki, just a cheap khaki color paint. I think it was Art Deco. Just dry brushed that all over to give that color. So that was the base color. Then after that, I went through with, I think it was a Heritage Brick by Art Deco as well. That started just a little bit of that to give a little bit of streaking of rust running down from the bridge shoes. Did that. And then after that, I went to town with some powders that I have. And as you can see, we got some tan in there, some brown, a little bit of rust color, and also some black. Then once I had those colors on, I sealed everything with a matte finish, and then came back and did a little dry brushing of some tan. And that helped mute a lot of it, which is what I wanted. And then after that, I gave the bridge piers on the top, or bridge shoes, I should say, the rust treatment, and ended that with some rust dark powder as well to give a little bit of texture. So very happy with how these came out. You can still see rubber bands on here, and those are to secure that material from Chooch. Still some loose ends, but I did secure it with epoxy, so hopefully this will do the trick. And I think I actually added some of those really small 1/8 inch nails or brads as well, which are really small, but they've helped secure these so they don't move, which is probably the most tedious part of this whole thing, is getting the material to stay conformed to the wood base. So now we have to make the bridge live up to the piers. So that's where the real work comes in. Okay, so I totally could not get the entire bridge in the frame, but that is the majority of it. So as you can see, just like the other bridge, the smaller bridge, we've got all the lace girder inside of the bridge on all of the I-beams. And then let me take the camera, sorry about that. Let me take the camera off of the tripod. Try to be careful here. And I can show you the acrylic here on the top and how I had to use those decals on the gusset plate. And you notice it's the same spacing. So I did that all over the top. Wondering how it's going to turn out when I spray it. But at this point, that is what we're going to do. We're going to take this thing out and we're going to start the painting process. I wanted to show the trials I had with deciding the color for the bridge. Black was the original color, and if there was nothing behind it, I would have kept this as the color. I was pretty certain I would go with this shade of green and through weathering tone it down a bit. I sat on it for about a month. Ultimately, I decided against it because it had too much blue in it. In this rendition, the color on the section on the left was my second attempt. And again, nope. Finally, I just decided to tarp over the entire structure so I wouldn't have to look at it. All right, YouTube, as you can see, there's a big mess out here in the garage where I have started the salt weathering technique. And what I did so far is spray on my rust colors and then sprinkled the salt everywhere. And it's going to be pretty random, as you can see. And this will be the first step to the weathering process. Also, I have found my color that I want to use on the bridge, the overall color. After all of that back and forth, as I showed you in the last segment, and I simply went back on YouTube, remembered a video that Eric Siegel made years ago, and I really wanted the color that he had on his trestle, steel trestle, and went back and he actually did mention it. And so the color I'm going to use is this right here, satin moss green, Rust-Oleum. So I'm going to get my mask on and go crazy on the bridge, and we'll be back. All right, ladies and gents, we're back, and as you can see, we've got the bridge, so you ultimately see the color that I have chosen for the bridges. I really like this color. I like the way it looks in the layout room under the layout lighting. You can also see the effects of the salt weathering. Right now, I like the amount, it's not overdone. However, later I will add some spots, rust spots on some of the edges, and I'll do that with some acrylics. But first, I think what I'm going to do is start with a dark wash to continue the weathering process, and then I will probably do the spots with the acrylic paints after that. And then once I get those two steps out of the way, we'll see what we do after that. But I have my arsenal right over here. Try not to be too clumsy. So I have all of those. Not sure exactly what I'm going to use, but you got to start somewhere. And let's see if we can make this bridge look like it's been through some wear and tear over the last several years. First thing you may notice is on the left side of the screen, there's two Americana colors, Heritage Brick and Raw Umber, two of my favorite colors from the craft store. And what I did is mixed them a little bit more with the Raw Umber. Maybe I say 25 Heritage Brick and 75 Raw Umber. And what I did was dab that on a really small paintbrush and just kind of dabbed it on the bottom rim of the girder bridge to show collection, and over time how those areas have rusted more than any other. Also, to complement the panels on the girder, I dabbed a little here and there, not to overtake the salt weathering that I did. And then finally what I did is took like a lighter green, almost like a mint color, and I just dry brushed that over the face of the entire bridge. It actually helped to tone down the rust a little bit so it wasn't so loud. It also shows a little bit of fading, and then finally gives the illusion that light or sun is also projecting onto the bridge. So it serves a few purposes. That was pretty simple, and that's pretty much all. I've done more weathering on other girder bridges, but as Norm Charbonneau says, we don't want everything to look apocalyptic, so I kind of held back a little bit on this one. So what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and probably do some kind of dull coat to protect what I've done, and then I'll dry brush maybe a gray to bring out some of those rivet detail that you probably can't even see right now. And then this thing will be ready to install on the layout. For the most part, I've done the exact same thing with the large truss bridges. So we'll show you all of that at the end.